Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Market Wrap. So I'm back in Philly, my Giants are still winless, COVID is still causing issues as my wife's trip to Colorado got canceled, so hopefully soon she can get back in the air, coming to accept the fact that I won't be traveling at all this year. So staying here in Philly, going back to Connecticut, that's gonna be about it for the time being. But three watches we got in this week's were absolute beauties, and what I'm gonna call all classics. So the first one we're gonna talk about is a Panerai, and it's the PAM 00098. So you can tell by the number, it's one of the earlier pieces. It's a GMT Alarm Radiomir, 42 millimeters. It was the first I remember of kind of that smaller series Panerais. When they first came out, they were these giant watches, and they took this really awesome watch from Gerard Perregaux, the Movement Alarm watch, and they put it in this Radiomir 42 millimeter case, just a great piece. We don't see a lot of them these days. I love that one. The second piece we're going to talk about is another classic, early 2000s Franck Muller. We actually spoke about some classic Franck Muller last week and magically one appeared. It's the 7002 CC. So it is a double-sided stainless steel chronograph. So it's got a small subdial for the time, the regular chronograph hands, and then if you flip it over, it actually has a telemeter scale on the back of the watch. Now, not the most useful watch I've ever seen because it's hard to use when it's on your wrist, but just an awesome, cool, early Franck Muller. And the last piece is one of my just all-time favorites, probably the most classic steel sports watch there is. It's the 5402 Audemars Piguet. Now this is one of the early A series, even the number's quite low, so it's probably 72, 73 when they first introduced them. This was such an absurd watch at the time. Nobody could understand why a steel sport watch would be close to $4,000 when most watches of the day were $700 or $800 in steel. It was the first luxury sports watch. It's just an amazing, incredible design going back to the 70s that still looks current today. Just a great rare find, so happy to have it. So we had a really strong first week trading in October. Trading in Patek has gained a lot of traction. We're seeing growth and activity. People realizing the value in kind of some of the classic models, annual calendars, and especially Calatravas. I think a lot of people are coming to realize these are never going to go out of style, and in the current market, the values just look great. Now, Lange is another brand that we are seeing a huge increase in trading in. And to be clear, about a year ago, we made a big push into a Lange Sohne. It was never a huge watch for Watchbox, but I've had a huge passion for the brand. I got introduced in Lange in the late 90s, was an authorized dealer from about 2000 till 3 or 4 years ago. I've had the opportunity to go to the factory 4 times, and I found a passion there and a quality of fit and finish in the brand that I just loved. I believe that it's one of the most undervalued brands. I think what people are going to see as they study it more, they look into the history, is that there's classic design, there's super high quality, true rarity, and I think the collectors of Patek and Journe today, in the next year or two, you'll start going into Lange, and I think it could drive the prices up. Now, the most fun of the week started actually on Monday with the introduction of the new Omega Snoopy. Now, I've never seen the internet explode like this for a watch. It showed up everywhere. Now, for all of you who know Omega, Snoopy's been a classic watch for them. They've made 2 very cool versions. The new version I absolutely love. It's stainless steel, it's got the blue bezel, it's got blue sub-registers, it's got cool Snoopy on the front. But the real action of the watch is when you flip it over. So when you turn over the watch, you've got Snoopy in the command service module, and he goes around the moon, and it actually moves on the back of the watch. Just an amazing job. It's a classic. Both early Snoopys have done exceptionally well. The first edition goes back to 2003. They made 5,441 pieces. The black dial, just a classic, was always collectible. And then in 2015, they came out with the silver Snoopy, which just skyrocketed. And anybody who follows the market, we've seen them get up close to $40,000. There's only 1,970 of those pieces, and it's just become probably the most iconic and collectible Omega. Now, while I think Omega did an amazing job on this watch, they made one huge mistake. And that mistake is they did not make it a limited edition. Now, why does that matter? I think all of us as collectors or as people who admire watches always like to think of how many are out there, what's it going to do to the market, and now we have an open-ended amount of watches. They could produce it for a year, they could produce it for 20 years. Nobody knows the production numbers. I think it's going to hurt the resale value. I think it makes it a little less special. And they did such a great job making it a super special watch. I think it was a big mistake for the brand to not make it a limited edition. So the last piece we're going to talk about today is what we are buying. As we were talking Snoopys, I love the black Snoopy. I think they're super undervalued. Compare it to the white, compare it to the new one. I think those, even though there's 5,441 pieces, I still think you don't see a ton in the market because people love them. I think they're a great value in that 10 to 12 range, so I think that's something we're always going to be searching for. The second piece we're looking for is the Rolex 114-300s. So this is the earlier OP version. They had made it for a few years, kind of the funky purple dial, that wine kind of yellowish dial. Both of those were a little underappreciated when they were produced, but now that they're discontinued, we're seeing demand go up, so we're actively seeking those. And the last piece that we're always looking for is my all-time favorite watch, the Lange Datograph. They come in a lot of different varieties, still one of the all-time classic watches. Love that piece. Thanks for watching this edition of Market Wrap. Look forward to seeing you next week.